Today, I'll share some dupes I found for some of my favorite makeup. This time, all the dupes are from Squad Cosmetics. From the swatches you're seeing on the screen right now, can you tell which ones are Squad Cosmetics and which ones are not? Let's start with pressed powder dupes. I'll be comparing the Fashion 21 two-way cake with the Squad Cosmetics pressed powder. On the swatches, there's a clear shade difference, but once applied on the skin, the Fashion 21 two-way cake with milk moisturizers is a warm-toned powder that works well as a setting powder for the rest of the face. I find that it has good coverage and it applies well with a brush or sponge. Meanwhile, the Squad Cosmetics pressed powder has less coverage but has the same warm undertone as the Fashion 21 powder. It also applies well with a brush or a sponge, and it's overall a good setting powder for all over the face. Next, I have cream blush dupes. I'll be comparing the Detail Cosmetics Velvet Flush to the Squad Cosmetics Happy Pot. Looking at the swatches, don't they look almost identical? Applying the Detail Cosmetics Velvet Flush on the cheeks is so quick and easy. It also sets to a powdery matte finish and is non-sticky or tacky. It also wears well throughout the day without being patchy. Like I said in my cream blush rankings video, this is my number 1 cream blush. Meanwhile, Squad's Happy Pot in the shade High School is the perfect shade dupe for Luna. They have slightly different formulas and finishes, but they're still pretty similar. This doesn't set matte, and you need to set this with a powder blush afterwards, but overall it's a more affordable alternative to the Detail Velvet Flush. Now, onto some eyeshadow dupes. First, I'll be comparing the e.l.f. Matte for Matte palette to the Squad Cosmetics Nude Mini Palette. Here are some side-by-side swatches of some of the shades in each palette. Starting with the matte brown shade from the e.l.f. palette, I'll apply it as my transition shade. Note that the e.l.f. palette contains all matte shades. Meanwhile, I'll take a similar shade from the Squad palette. The Squad mini palettes contain a mix of matte, shimmer, and metallic shades. Next, I'll use a slightly darker shade for the outer corners and the crease. Here, I start to see a difference in the way the eyeshadows from the two palettes apply on the eyelids. I noticed that I needed to build up the e.l.f. eyeshadows just a little bit more, and I needed to go back to the same shade to intensify the pigment. However, I didn't have the same experience with the Squad palette. I find that all the shades in the palette are intensely pigmented, and the matte shades are so easy to apply and blend on the lids. I personally prefer the Squad palette to the e.l.f. one. The next dupes are warm-toned palettes. I found a dupe for one of my favorite palettes, the Makeup Revolution Reloaded Newtrals 2. And the dupe is Squad's Peach Eyeshadow Palette. I'll start with a warm orangey brown shade for the outer corners. Makeup Revolution makes amazing eyeshadow palettes, and they've been my favorites for many years now. I particularly love their warm tone palettes because I love warm shades, like this rich orangey brown shade I'm using right now. But Squad Cosmetics also makes great warm-toned eyeshadow palettes, and they're easier to find and get here in the Philippines. They're also a lot cheaper than Makeup Revolution palettes, which are already affordable to begin with. Now moving on to a specific shade dupe. I'll share a dupe for this beautiful rose gold shade in the Makeup Revolution Iconic 3 palette. Now don't both these swatches look so beautiful? This rose gold shade is probably the only reason I still keep the Makeup Revolution Iconic 3 palette, because this shade is unique and really pretty. I just love applying this on my eyelid to take my eye look to the next level. But I found that mixing two shimmery/metallic shades in the Squad Nude Mini Palette actually creates this beautiful rose gold shade too. And let me tell you, the resulting shade is quite close to the rose gold shade I mentioned in the Makeup Revolution palette. Here I'm just applying the same shades on the lower lids. And here I found that the Squad eyeshadows are slightly more intense and they have less fallout. Next, I'll use a dark reddish pink shade as a liner. Going back to the Reloaded Newtrals 2 palette, I wanted to show how the intensity of the Makeup Revolution eyeshadows compared to that of Squad's eyeshadows. For years, I have raved about the Makeup Revolution eyeshadows because they're so rich and pigmented, just like this bright pink shade. But after trying Squad's eyeshadows, I realized that I can get an even more intense look with more affordable eyeshadows from a local brand. In conclusion, I still love both brands and I'll continue to use both palettes because they're both great. Next, I have highlighter dupes. I found a dupe for the popular Wet n Wild Boozy Brunch highlighter, and it's Squad's Starlight Baked Highlighter. Now don't they look similar on the swatches? On the cheeks, Wet n Wild Boozy Brunch looks more metallic than shimmery. I like wearing this highlighter for special occasions because it's long wearing, and as you can see, it's a blinding golden highlighter. Meanwhile, Squad Cosmetics Baked Highlighter in the shade Starlight is a shade dupe for Boozy Brunch. However, this is less metallic and more shimmery. This also has a bit of a fallout and doesn't last as well or as long as the Wet n Wild one. But it's still perfect for every day, and it's just as blinding and pretty. And now to finish this look, you know I have to include lipstick dupes. And I'll be comparing the Detail Powder Pout to the Squad Multi-Purpose Mousse Cream. They may be different lipstick formulas, but they surely look very similar. The Detail Powder Pout is actually a new favorite of mine, and the shade Tony Sia is just the perfect peachy nude shade for every day. Meanwhile, Squad's Multi-Purpose Mousse Cream in Blythe is also a beautiful peachy nude shade. On application, you can see that there is a shade difference between the two. But once both lipsticks set, they really look identical. And here's the finished look. I forgot to film an outro for this video, so here are some selfies I took wearing all the dupes. Thank you guys for watching. See you in my next video. Bye!